honesty, passion, experience. It's Timberwolves Explosion, hosted on the sportstuff.com and also brought to you by the Oddman Media Network. Here are your hosts, Paladino Joey and Marcus the Forecaster. Hello again, Timberwolves fans. Are you ready for the explosion of Timberwolves basketball? I'm your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Wygen. Timberwolves Explosion is available on the sportstuff.com and on iTunes and on Double Twist, all that good stuff for Android, or I'll probably try to get it on SoundCloud at some point again, too. But yeah, it's available on those. I thank each and every one of you always for downloading and listening to this show. It's a pleasure to be back once again. I've been kind of doing this on every other week basis for the time being. I'll probably come back next week, though, to keep things rolling here. We're in the Final Four in the NBA playoffs. I like to keep up with that, and, of course, the Wolves news ongoing and all that, and some draft talk. That's why I'll probably come back next week, because the the lottery will be taking place on this upcoming Tuesday. So there it is. We're going to be talking about that a little bit today. Got the little mock draft lottery machine from ESPN in front of me right now, just to kind of imagine things, just to kind of see what happens. See, just a hint of what the Wolves' luck will be coming up on Tuesday night. Will it finally be good, or will it be the same old bullcrap, or where somebody out east or somebody out west, two pretty significant franchises, will leapfrog the Timberwolves, or somebody like Indiana who's supposed to be picking 10th, or the Miami Heat, because they lost LeBron James. You know, somebody like that will slide all the way up to number one, just like the Chicago Bulls did back in 2008, much to my chagrin. But then again, that draft turned out okay in the end. For the most part, until things changed. But then that web brought us Andrew Wiggins. Okay, I'm getting way off track. But then again, what is on track when it comes to the Timberwolves? It's an ever-changing story. The Minnesota Timberwolves franchise changes shape about as often as a cumulonimbus cloud changes on a humid day. It changes quite frequently, doesn't it? Now I'm getting into weather. Yeah, I think I had too much coffee, didn't I? All right, well, it's going to be a 3-segment show. First segment will be Minnesota Timberwolves talk. It's going to be, about the draft lottery mostly, and how things hopefully will turn out, and I'm just going to kind of make up scenarios with the little lottery thing. I'm only going to do it once, just to kind of pretend like it's Tuesday night and what's going to be on my mind. And I have a little inclusion from Marcus the Forecaster, so he's still out there. He still does exist. You know what I mean? He still does exist for Timberwolves Explosion. Via a text message a couple of days ago, I asked him what his thoughts on the draft are. You know, like the three potential guys, unless we wind up fourth. God forbid. That would be the stupidest bunch of crap ever. That would mean 3 teams will have leapfrogged the Timberwolves. Could you imagine that possibility happening? Knock on wood. It's not going to turn out that way. In my opinion, one of the 3 guys out there will be a nice potential player for the Timberwolves, at least a number 2 star for Andrew Wiggins. If not, even better. We'll see what happens. Obviously, those guys are Karl Anthony Towns, Jahlil Okafor, and D'Angelo Russell out of Ohio State. Yeah, a nice ringing endorsement from the Forecaster via text. Segment number 2, playoff talk. Yeah, we're down to the Final Four. Congratulations to the teams involved. We'll get to that very shortly. And segment number 3 will be fan interaction. So, before I press the lottery button here, let's hear what Marcus the Forecaster has to say. Okay, I simply asked him, who's your top choice for the Wolves? Karl Anthony Towns, Jahlil Okafor, or D'Angelo Russell? Forecaster jumps in very, as quick as he does anyway, but very analytical, and that's why I decided to use this on the show today. Very awesome. He says, Russell. Yeah, D'Angelo Russell, folks. Then trade Rubio and Chase, meaning Chase Budinger, for a pick. Possibly a trade with the 76ers for theirs. That would mean, somewhere in the top 3, 4, 5 range. I believe right now, yes, 76ers are projected to be number 3. Well, we all know how these can turn out, but we'll see what happens. 76ers for their pick. For theirs, then pick for our own DJ type center. We'll have to see what happens there. A pillow like Rubio is a pillow. I'm not sure he meant it. See, that's the one thing he's probably voice texting is not the way to go. Meaning a point guard like Rubio is not the way to go. Watching the playoffs, all the point guards score and can drive to the hoop. If they have a bad game, they lose. And the centers actually defend. Yeah. We need a I don't know why this is coming up wrong, but it's probably because it was voice text by him. We need a point guard who can drive to the basket and make a layup. But then again, watching the playoffs, every point guard can shoot and have some ability, to teardrop or finish over a big. Teardrop or finish over a big, like a Damian Lillard. Yep. He continues. All playoffs, the point guards were pretty key to their wins. Or get Towns and try to get the point guard from Apple Valley. Yeah, that guy. Yep. That being the guy from Duke. He says, but I like Stein. Yep, also Stein. Willie Cauley Stein. Yes, sir. He likes him because he can defend every position, but not as a top 4 pick. So that may be a trade into the Sixes or something. We'll see what happens with that. He said, we'd be crazy to think that Rubio, who is dang near a basketball veteran, can turn his shooting around. Very, very interesting take there. So basically, in a nutshell, Marcus the Forecaster not convinced that Ricky Rubio is the right point guard for the job because he really can't shoot the ball, and we'd be crazy to think that he's going to turn that around. Yeah, because he hasn't turned it around, and it looked like he might have a little bit last year from that from the shooting coach, and then a couple of weeks later it was the same old garbage again, and then of course he continued to roll his ankle. That's not as much of a concern as the lack of making a shot. That is a concern. His passing ability is fantastic, but again, Marcus the Forecaster's main focus here is an explosive point guard who can score, hit threes, and of course floaters and all of that. Obviously to keep the defense honest, and to also be a guy that can hit a clutch shot down the stretch as well when need be, a la Chris Paul. Boy, did things go all over the place with that guy. So there it is. I, to this point, have endorsed Karl Anthony Towns. He reminds me of Alonzo Mourning, to be honest. He's very physical, blocks shots. When he posts up, he's kind of a power type of guy. Jahlil Okafor is a finesse type of guy. But he does have got a lot of that Tim Duncan up and under type of approach, which is, I think, a very intriguing type of guy. I think he's got a wonderful future in the league, but there's two red flags for Jahlil Okafor coming into the draft. His free throw shooting is not good, and we saw how that hurt the Clippers and almost killed the Houston Rockets as well. That's frustrating. You don't want to hear hack at Jahlil too often, but then again, we'll just see how things go. D'Angelo Russell, Marcus the Forecaster, and of course watching extensive video on the 3 top guys there, who I'm really hoping we get one of. To me, D'Angelo Russell does have a chance to be the best player in the 2015 draft. And I'm saying that with full sincerity. Doesn't mean he will be, but the possibility does exist, and he could be the franchise-changing guard that this franchise so desperately needs. The question then becomes, what do you get for Ricky Rubio? Well, we'll just have to get into those hypotheticals when the time comes, and hopefully the Minnesota Timberwolves, that being Phil Saunders, can, pull off the right trade and not screw this one up too bad, should we wind up taking D'Angelo Russell. But if you do see that name show up for the Minnesota Timberwolves on draft night, something's going to happen. Something very significant is going to be in the works. Will it take all summer? We'll just have to wait and see. So with no further ado, it's Tuesday night, ladies and gentlemen. It is, let's say it's Central Time. Let's say it's about 7:45, 7:50. 7:50, okay? It's 7:50. They're down to the top 5 picks in the draft. They came out of their 19th commercial break, and, because they just have to do that. And things are going funny. But we already forgot, who the other guys went before top 5, so let's just jump to it. Okay, here comes the envelope. Oh boy, here we go. Click, click, click. tick, tick, tock. And the number 1 pick in the 2015 draft goes to the LA Lakers. Well, are you surprised? Yeah, you're so surprised, aren't you? Yeah, I'm so surprised. I could just smash the screen right now. Yeah, the LA Lakers get the number 1 pick in the 2015 draft. According to this. This is no indicator of where we're headed because it's just something you could press the button 900 million times. We're just pretending this is the real one. The number 2 pick. Does it go to the Timberwolves? No, of course it doesn't. Yeah, it goes to the Sacramento Kings. Isn't that just terrific? Isn't that precious? You know, I'm just so happy right now. I could just scream so loud. The screen will shatter into a million pieces. Why? The number 3 pick goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Well, all right. Yay. I'm so happy. Thank you for not dropping us out of the top 3. Okay, so now who do the Lakers take in the 2015 draft? They go with Karl Anthony Towns. So they're next Shaquille O'Neal, so to speak. Or that would totally figure, wouldn't it? Because what did the Lakers do generation upon generation? Yeah. Let's see, George Mikan. Let's see, yeah. They had George Mikan when they were here in Minneapolis. They go to L.A., they struggle a little while. Yeah, but then they have some really nice seasons. But yeah, they get bored. They need a center. So yeah, Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah, just Wilt Chamberlain. You know, he's just a fill-in at center. Oh, and by the way, Wilt gets old and retires, and yeah, they need to replace him with another Band-Aid guy who played for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know, a little name changing going on there. The Brooklyn, New York native. Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's all. It's just Kareem, you know. He's okay. He was all right. Well, then there was a guy who was okay, but he ended up being better to replace Kareem for a little while. First round pick, Vlade Divac, who had some all-star games. Nice, solid, intelligent player. Good passer, good scorer, block shots. Yeah, he was pretty valuable, but he wasn't a superstar. The Lakers got bored. They weren't winning. Yeah, and there's this guy named Shaq in Orlando who just was like, I don't know, let's just throw him $120 million, that's all. Maybe let's see if he comes. Oh, he did. Yeah. So there you go. And then Shaq gets kind of in a feud with Kobe years later, or was it pretty much from the get-go? But it got worse later. Winds up getting traded to the Miami Heat, and then they wind up with Andrew Bynum, who was pretty good for a little while, but injury-prone. But they only got 2 championships in the Bynum era. That's all. Just 2. That's not bad. That's still, two more than we've gotten since then. and most other teams. So now they wind up with Karl Anthony Towns. According to this, that would just totally figure, wouldn't it? It really would. Jahlil Okafor or Karl Anthony Towns would totally figure. Sacramento Kings, long story longer, or let's finally get this moving. D'Angelo Russell going to Sacramento to combine with DeMarcus Cousins. That would instantly turn the Sacramento Kings into a contender as far as I'm concerned. They have George Karl, they have Rudy Gay, DeMarcus Cousins, and they have other nice pieces on that team. That would be a pretty good mix, and I would hate to see it happen because I don't like the Sacramento Kings at all. You know what? Screw the Sacramento Kings. Minnesota Timberwolves. That leaves us with Tim Duncan 2.0, or a Tim Duncan that's not very good at free throws, and his defense is not really Karl Anthony Towns level. But we'll see. Some of you out there do believe Jahlil Okafor is very, very worthy of the number 1 overall pick. I'm not quite there yet, but we'll see. I hope he is, to be quite frank. I'm just not there yet, but at the same time, you have the 3rd overall pick and you still wind up with Jahlil Okafor. Cool. Sounds good to me. And then the New York Knicks get their point guard of the future in Emmanuel Mudiay. So there you go. Assuming the Minnesota Timberwolves wind up with the 3rd overall pick, we'll end up with Russell or Okafor. Yeah. And I wouldn't be that pissed, but at the same time, it'd be nice to at least get number 2, so you're going to have a crack at one of the 2 big guys, or D'Angelo. You'll have a choice, per se, for D'Angelo Russell or one of the big guys, whoever that may be. Looks like Karl Anthony Towns is probably going to go number 1 overall to most teams. So, yeah, don't be surprised if the Wolves do end up with something like this, because it's been the Wolves' history for all time. The best pick the Wolves have ever gotten was the number 2 overall pick, and they were projected to be number 1 that year. So, go figure. Was that surprising? No, it wasn't all that surprising. I don't even want to remember it anymore. I don't want to. Yeah, Cleveland Cavaliers, of course, shock of the decade, got the number 1 pick that year, and they wound up with Kyrie Irving, who was slightly better than Derek Williams, just a little bit better, So there it is. There's your draft lottery. There's your possibilities. Cauley Stein, I think he'll be pretty good, but I don't know. I think it's a significant drop-off after the top 3 as far as I'm concerned. Emmanuel at the point guard. Well, there you go. You still got the issues coming up with Ricky Rubio. And again, I'll get deeper into the draft when I record again next week. But right now, right now I'm focusing a lot on the top 3. I hope we wind up with those guys. And a lot of the mock drafts turn out that if the Wolves wind up with the 4th pick, that Emmanuel would go to somebody like a New York Knicks or something if they went number 3. Or 76ers, something like that. Should I press the lottery thing one more time just for the hell of it? Just for the hell of it to see if we get number 1? I'll do it really quick. But this is the official one. This one right here that you heard is the official one for Timberwolves Explosion. But I'll do it one more time, just for the hell of it. Tick, 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 drop, drop, drop. Uh-oh. Number 1, goes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Karl Anthony Towns. Number 2 goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jahlil Okafor. Number 3, New York Knicks. D'Angelo Russell. And then the Lakers drop all the way down to number 4, where they wind up with a good scenario anyway, with the second best point guard in the draft, Emmanuel Mudiay. So there you go. There it is. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Was able to get Marcus's take in there, and my belief that D'Angelo Russell would certainly not be any type of consolation prize for the other 2 centers. I think he'd be absolutely fantastic. So as long as the Wolves wind up in the 3, at least we'll have a chance to get a potential star in the making. Again, no guarantees of any kind. It doesn't mean these guys don't have degenerative knee conditions that we don't know about yet, like Brandon Roy or Greg Oden. We don't know. God willing, God bless them, knock on wood, all the above, that they have none of those problems, but you just don't know. Or maybe they're just not as good as we'd like to believe. But until then, well, if we wind up in the top 3, I do believe the Wolves wind up with somebody that will make a significant improvement to the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise in the upcoming seasons. With that, we'll take a break, and let's talk about the NBA playoffs in the second round. On to number 3. Well, Tuesday night we find out once again if the NBA draft lottery is rigged against Minnesota. The last 25 years would tell you it is, but hopefully this will be the end of it once and for all. So will it be? Well, it better be. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion. This is actually, you know what? I gotta say it right now. Episode number 150. I might as well say it because it's kind of a milestone. It's not a humongous, like, oh my god, massive milestone, but it's a pretty cool number, 150. It's a nice round number per se, so there you go. We're halfway to episode number 300 and only 50 away from episode number 200. So just a little interesting fact for you before we jump into the postseason segment here. One other thing, though. I'm about 16 episodes away from my overall 500th podcast recorded during the course of my quote-unquote podcasting career over the years with Paladino Live, Purple Mafia, Timberwolves Explosion, Brave the Wild, and Showtime and T-Wolves. So, yeah, almost at number 500. That should occur sometime, maybe late summer. It'll happen. It'll either probably be on this show or on Purple Mafia. I got to figure, put it on one of the 2 shows with the larger audience for that type of a significant milestone, because I got to think that'll be something fairly special. That's a pretty big freaking number. Not many people have reached 500 podcasts overall. That's a lot. All right, and if we record every single week for since 9 years ago, okay, sure, that's a little more possible. But all right, on to it. I'm kind of branching off into nothingness here. The second round was it slightly better than the first round? Absolutely. Not even close. That's why I always rip the first round, even though it's a worthy watch because there's at least 1 or 2 series that are very, very good in the first round. Like San Antonio and LA Clippers. That was fantastic. Clippers had to face a 7-game situation once again. We won't talk about that one just yet. Let's move on to the ones that were not quite as dramatic as that one. But to be quite honest, all of the second round series were worthy watches. And Congratulations to the NBA for that. Let's start off in the Eastern Conference with the Atlanta Hawks, and the Washington Wizards. Lots of drama here. Lots of truth going on. You know, the truth was told, and then the truth was taken away because it was a lie, at least on the last shot of the series. Spoiler alert, wink, wink, hint, hint. Too soon? Washington Wizards started this series out fairly well. Very well. And more than once in this series, the underdog took a 2-1 lead in the series and did not win the series. And, in fact, actually that happened in every single one of the series. Yeah, every single one of them. That's quite a strange... that is quite a strange event to take place right here. All the underdogs took a 2-1 lead in these series. And, yeah, none of them won. 0. Pretty weird. Yeah, but anyhow, let's just get on with it. Washington Wizards winning the first game, I was like, oh, great. The Atlanta Hawks they're just not for real, are they? They're just a bunch of jokers. Well, eventually they kind of sort of became real, and good for them. Pardon me for the noise here. It just is what it is. One-man show, producer and host. It just kind of is what it is. No co-host right now. Washington winning 104-98 in the first game. Atlanta coming in with a much more commanding effort, knowing they had to win Game 2, 106-90. Game 3, the truth was told, and Paul Pierce was unbelievably clutch in the third game, 103-101. Wizards take a 2-1 lead, and they'd never win again. The Atlanta Hawks applied a little better defense and were more clutch along the way. And congratulations to them, barely beating the Wizards in Game 5 to take a 3-2 lead. That's when I knew the Wizards were done, because Atlanta was going to win a 7th game at home regardless if Washington was able to pull off a victory in Game number 6 or not. Atlanta's winning Game number 4 was absolutely humongous, though. It was a must-win game. You could not go down 3-1, even though a certain other team was able to still come back from that. That is a very difficult thing to come back from. You'd have to win Game 5 to survive, which the Hawks did, and they'd also have to win game number 6 on the road. That'd be really, really tough. But the Hawks were able to pull off 3 wins in a row, a very impressive stretch. Lucky for the Hawks that Al Horford was able to tip that thing in and lead the Hawks to victory, because it looked like the Wizards were going to win the game, but no. Victory was stolen away at Al Horford getting that offensive rebound off of the missed shot and the basket for Mr. Horford. And then a 94-91 game in which the Wizards led most of the way, but the Hawks kind of kept clipping away, and eventually took it away. They took the lead, and they actually held on to it for quite a while as well. And then the Wizards made a comeback. It was kind of a game of runs, and then Paul Pierce hitting another 3 at the buzzer to tie it up and send it to overtime. But no, apparently he barely, and I mean barely, had his epidermis, the epidermis of his skin, still barely touching the ball as the backboard light came on. That's pretty much how it turned out. He ended up missing the shot, the shot ended up not counting, and the Atlanta Hawks go on to win the series 4-2, and congratulations to the Atlanta Hawks, finally getting to round number 3 for the first time in the history of the franchise of the Atlanta Hawks. And they haven't won 2 playoff series since 1958 when they were the St. Louis Hawks and they won the NBA championship. Back in the day, apparently, this is where I was wrong about something. The Hawks did make the Eastern Conference Finals in 1970. Yeah, that's only 45 years ago. But hey, they were the Atlanta Hawks and they made it. But back then there wasn't 3 rounds. It wasn't the third round. It was the second round because the NBA was smaller and all that. You get the idea. It seemed like most of the sports back in the day there was less rounds and less games to be played, like 5-game series and all that. Back in the day, the Major League Baseball was only a 5-game series in the ALCS, if you can imagine that. The League Championship Series, if you can imagine that. So, very quick situation there. How things turn out. The NBA used to have 5-game series in the first round, not even that long ago, back in the late 90s. So, I'm glad it went to 7-game series. And even in the early 2000s, the Wolves were victims of 3-0 sweeps to the Dallas freaking Mavericks back in the day. Let's try not to remember that. But, the Hawks finally getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they even have home court advantage. Congratulations to them. I truly, truly wish with all my heart that this was the team with Dominic Wilkins and Kevin Willits and all those guys on the roster back in the 94 Hawks 21 years ago. Number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And how do they reward the man that stuck with that franchise for all those years? They trade him to the frickin' Clippers. Really? A team that, yeah, they made the playoffs. Sure. Yeah, with the 8th seed. Yeah, cute. For Danny Manning, who didn't even stay and was not worthy of a number one pick. You do not do that. That was the most dick move in the history of the Atlanta Hawks. What the hell were they thinking? What the hell were they thinking? That was just the stupidest move ever. And then the Pacers. Yeah, Patriots. Let's stay off that topic. Go Patriots, damn it. The Pacers ended up beating them in 6 games. I still remember that, and I felt bad. I was happy for the Pacers because it was impressive, but man, the Hawks fans were screwed. Dominic Wilkins was screwed, and the players on the Hawks were screwed. The only thing that deserved to be screwed was the ownership and the management for that one. BS move by the Hawks. But now they're finally going to the East Finals. But now they're running into who I still believe is the best player on the planet. That being, I almost called him Dominic Wilkins. That being LeBron James. Let's stay in the East for now. Chicago and Cleveland. All you haters out there that highly prefer Chicago over Cleveland. And you know what? I highly prefer the Miami Heat over Cleveland when in regards to LeBron James being a member of the team. But you know what? I'm enjoying watching LeBron in the postseason. I've enjoyed it for a while. Ever since he got to Miami. Well, actually, pardon me. I'll bite that. Ever since the second season of LeBron in Miami, I do not enjoy anybody more in the postseason to watch than LeBron James. Nobody. I don't enjoy watching anybody more than LeBron James in the postseason as of 2012. Not 2011 or anything before that. In fact, because he was one of the bigger chokes in all basketball at the time. Even though the Heat got to the finals, they still, shat the bed against the Dallas Mavericks, didn't they? But they didn't shat the bed against the Chicago Bulls. Despite the fact the Bulls played very, very well. They won the first game on the road, 99-92. But then Cleveland commanding, saying, no way, were we going down 0-2? And everybody knew it. They kicked the Bulls' butts in the second game, 106-99. Then the Bulls again stifling the Cavs 99-96 in the third game. I had a lot of people going, ha, Cavs are done, na, boo-boo. But then a couple of very, very close games. Cleveland just barely hanging on, playing much tougher defense and hitting shots that they needed to. LeBron James driving to the basket and scoring. Attacking the basket the way he does, winning 86-84. And then a very, very well-played game. Defense not nearly as good for either team in Game 5, 106-101. And then the Cleveland Browns. Now I'm kidding. The Cleveland Cavaliers destroy the Bulls in Game 6. It just did not go well at all. A Bulls team that just got the vibe like, I guess we're not going to win. I'm not going to say they quit on their coach or anybody like that or on themselves. It was just a situation where it's like they got the vibe like, I guess we're not going to win. And this Cavs team is apparently on a mission now. And they sure looked it in that 6th game, even with Kyrie Irving being out. And we'll talk about another guy being out and the team making an influential run in the 4th quarter out west. We'll talk about that very soon. But the way Cleveland kind of really just the momentum they took in that 6th game was quite impressive. Great defense and good offense. Now, I'm going to make this statement right now before I forget because it's in my train of thought here. There's a reason why I enjoy LeBron James, watching LeBron James so much in the postseason, because he plays basketball the way I enjoy watching, driving to the basket, dunking, scoring on people. Sure, he gets fouled and he makes them and stuff, but he also just gets to the basket and dunks on people and scores. That's the side of basketball that I miss so much, and I think is being lost in the shovel here with all this run and gun stuff. Why do you think I love Andrew Wiggins so much? Why do you think I love him? Is he constantly just looking for a three-point shot all day, all night? He shoots the three, he misses, up, offensive rebound, back out for another 3 attempt. Hey, now it went in. Okay, good. That's great, and great. Good on the Warriors for making their 9,000 three-pointers. And if they are going to make them, then okay, then they deserve to win the game and the NBA championship, if it leads to that. But I think a lot of what I love about basketball is getting lost in the shuffle, and what a lot of people in the past loved about Michael Jordan is getting lost in all this a little bit, in this obsession with run and gun. Again, God love you if you're perfecting the shot. And, if you're perfecting the run and gun the way the Warriors and even the Houston Rockets and LA Clippers and teams like that have been doing the past few years, especially this season. God love you if you're able to perfect it and win a championship with it. But I still enjoy a guy with power, talent, and unbelievable talent driving to the basket and dunking on people versus just launching threes like about 75% of the game. That's the reason why I like LeBron James so much. That's why. It's not because I'm just a LeBrobo, a LeBron Bobo per se, as that's a term used locally here by one of the shows, one of the local radio shows. I'm not just all about the jersey and the swag and how cool this guy is and oh yeah. I don't give a damn about that. I just want to watch basketball, and I like to see a guy like LeBron James do what he does in big games, hit big shots, and yes, hit some threes too. I'm not against the three-point shot at all. When you're making a run, you're either building a lead or you're making a comeback, one way or another, launching a three at the right time, right place is freaking awesome. But it's also nice when you can mix it up with dunks and all that. And yes, the Warriors do that, but the Houston Rockets and Clippers and all them, yeah, they do all that, but not as much. That's all. It's just not as good. It's still good, but not as good. That's how I see it. Let's go out west before I drag this out any longer. But that is the root of why I see things the way I do. It ain't hate. It's just I love the way certain things have been over the course of time. And I don't necessarily need to see them change. That's just how I see it, all right? Golden State Warriors, Memphis Grizzlies didn't start out well in the first game. Grizzlies didn't seem to have any semblance of offense. Of course, no Mike Conley out there with the injured face. Yeah, lacerations, all that, injuries. That kind of can't have felt well at all. The Warriors just steamrolled over them. And then the Grizzlies win 2 games in a row. And it's like, hey, this is great. I mean, look at the defense by the Grizzlies, keeping the Warriors to 90 points and 89 points, respectively. Those were good years back in the day, too, 89 and 90, but you get the idea. To be able to keep the Warriors down that far, very impressive. But this is why the Warriors look like they have a pretty good chance of winning the championship, because as well as the Grizzlies played defensively, they couldn't sustain it. They just couldn't sustain it. It just didn't work out, unfortunately, because the Warriors started hitting shots like crazy. I mean, 101-84. And yes, by the way, the Warriors have more to their game than threes. And yes, their defense is good and their athleticism, and they really displayed it in Game 4 on the road. 101-84. Just an absolute butt whooping. They just played out of their minds. Fantastic night for them. Stephen Curry hit his 9,000 shots, and yes, he's the MVP of the NBA, and you know that already. 33 points for him in that one, and that was definitely a statement game for him. About 50% from the three-point line. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Only 78 points for the Grizzlies in Game 5 in not Golden State, Oracle Arena. It's better to call it that. That had to have shattered their confidence, and they didn't come out they just didn't get it done in game number 6, even though they were at home. The Warriors set the tone early, and they just finished them off. 108-95. 6-game series victory for the Golden State Warriors, and they're going to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 1975. So congratulations to them. Remember, they won the NBA championship that year. Excuse me, they went to the Western Finals in 1976, and they didn't win. But in 1975, they won the NBA title. Pardon me. So that's another team. It's been about 39, 40 years for the Golden State Warriors to go back into their good old days, per se, to get to the conference finals. Remember all those good teams in the late 80s, early 90s, and they even had some good teams a couple years ago. It's been a long time for the Warriors. And yes, they had a lot of junk in the 90s, a lot, and in the early 2000s and the mid-2000s, even though they made the playoffs a few of those years with some promise here and there. But the late 80s, early 90s teams, man, Spreewell, Chris Mullin, Tim Hardaway. Man, I mean, one good player after another, and they just could not get it done. I mean, they lost to the Phoenix Suns. Remember the 93 playoffs? Second, it was only the first round. Yeah, that's all it was, the first round, but the Warriors made it very, very interesting. But the Suns were just too much for them. It was kind of like Suns versus White Dwarfs, I guess. You know, because like the Sun is bigger than a White Dwarf, but they're still like, you know, hot shooting and all that, and offensive and all that. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. But this year's Golden State Warriors are looking golden indeed. They sure are. And props to Steve Kerr and such. Dave Yeager, though, looks like a very promising coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. Unfortunately, there's age on the Grizzlies, but there's also youth as well. Mike Conley has a nice future. Marcus Sol is an unrestricted free agent. That's going to be very, very interesting to see what winds up there. Will he stay in Memphis? Because he's had a wonderful career there so far. Had a couple of, he's been to the All-Star game many times, been Defensive Player of the Year. Will he stay there? Will he not? Interesting. We'll just have to wait and see there. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our feature presentation. Clippers and the Houston Rockets. Clippers and the Houston Rockets. Not only do the Clippers take a 2-1 lead in this series, they take a 3-1 lead in this series. And it looked like the Clippers really, really picked up where they left off, didn't it? Houston just steamrolled over the Dallas Mavericks. You thought everything would be fine, but the Clippers were carrying momentum after beating the defending world champions and their arch nemesis over the past couple of years. Pretty much as much of a nemesis or brick wall for the LA Clippers that the Chicago Blackhawks are for the Minnesota Wild. So for them to finally win a 7-game series against the Spurs was a huge, huge boost in confidence for the Clippers. 117-101 in the first game. Houston again saving face, playing awesome basketball in the second game, 115-109. And then the Clippers just shatter the Houston Rockets' confidence, demolishing them back-to-back games by about 30-point deficits. And yes, the Rockets trailed by 30 in both of these games at certain times, and they lost by 33 in Game 4. You figure that's it for the Rockets at this point. 124-99 in Game number 3, and 128-95 in Game number 4. That was just a demolition derby. You figure that's all she wrote. But then Houston trying to save face at this point in Game number 5. You figure, okay, they'll win the 5th game, and they played about as good a basketball as you've seen them play. Fantastic. 124-103, destroying them, staying alive off to Game number 6. And it looked like the Rockets were dead and gone, the way the Clippers were rolling over them early on. But then the Rockets just hung on. In the first quarter, they hung on respectively and then had a nice surge at the end of the second quarter when Clippers took a 15-point lead. And they only trailed by 2 points at the half. You figure, okay, everything will be fine. Maybe Houston will stay alive. But the Clippers will probably pull away and win, and they're off to play the Warriors in the West Finals. They'll finally get to the conference finals. There's a lot of first time in a whiles in this postseason, aren't there? Quite a few. Clippers, it looked like they're finally going to the West Finals. And who knows, maybe the dream of a lifetime. They'll beat the Warriors and go all the way. Because if they win the West, maybe they win the whole thing. Maybe. After the lead they were taking in that third quarter, the Rockets looked like they were just going through the motion. They looked like dead men walking out there. They couldn't even get a rebound. They couldn't stop anybody. DeAndre Jordan was bullying, and I mean bullying, Dwight Howard to a point of, it was almost like this guy's an asshole. As much as you don't like Dwight Howard and the elbows he was throwing the whole night due to probably frustration and such. The Rockets were getting very frustrated during the course of this game. They're basically like, our season's over, we're dead. But then quarter number 4 happens. And it was 1994 all over again. And do you know who won the championship in 1994? Well, for those of you youngsters out there that don't remember it, the Houston Rockets won the 1994 NBA championship. Yes, they did, and they were clutch. In fact, they were so clutch, they nicknamed the team Clutch City. That's what they did. And the Rockets were Clutch City. The Clippers missed a couple shots. The Rockets come around the court, hit some threes. Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, Trevor Ariza. And then Dwight Howard was getting every rebound that the Clippers continued to clang and miss. A 5-0 run. Okay, things are going all right. And then it became a 7-0 run. And a 10-0 run. And the Clippers continued to miss shots. And it was the strangest thing you ever saw. And they'd get open threes and you figure, oh, they'll make this one. No, it bounced out. And now it's a single-digit deficit for the Rockets. Single-digit deficit for the Rockets. And then down the court again goes Josh Smith. Yeah. And then he hits another one. And all of this taking place when a young man by the name of James Harden his beard was just too heavy, so his legs were sore, and he was unable to play. I mean, he was able to play, but they figured just let him get some rest while this run's going. Why stop it? And it got to a point, as the Rockets continued to hit threes, and they only trailed by 5 points, Kevin McHale calls a timeout because his players are absolutely gassed. Josh Smith throws his arms in the air like, "What are you doing, Kevin? What are you doing, Coach McHale? Why would you call timeout here?" It was quite funny, and the announcers laughed at it, and even I was like, "Oh, why are you calling timeout?" Because the Rockets were just running down the court and hitting threes. Or dunking the ball, or getting layups, or whatever it was. The hack of Dwight, well, they were doing that as well. It looked like the Rockets were still going to lose because of all that, but ultimately they didn't. Jason Terry hit a three along the way. At least, no, he hit 2 threes along the way. Ariza hit a clutch 3. He's like the Robert Horry. Josh Smith hit 3 after 3. Brewer wound up with 20 points in the game. And Dwight Howard, quietly as all, had a 20-20 game because of a couple tip-ins and a million rebounds as the Clippers continue to miss them down the stretch. Key turnovers and a lot of missed shots. Awesome defense by the Houston Rockets, blocking shots. DeAndre Jordan was no longer bullying Dwight Howard. Dwight was blocking shots and he was getting rebounds. We forgot how good Dwight Howard can be, at least once in a while. And on this particular night, the Houston Rockets looked like the Rockets of old, at least for one night. And then ultimately today in Game 7, it was a typical Game 7 at home for a team that's favored to win the series ultimately. And the Rockets pulled away and won this one 113-100. Not all that much to say other than the Rockets led the entire way. They never really had any doubt after game number 6. And, boy, you kind of feel for a guy like Chris Paul, who played so well against the Spurs and playing on one leg and hit like a million threes and ended up leading the Clippers to victory in game number 7 over the Spurs, who were breathing down their necks that entire night. So I do feel sorry for him a bit. A little bit. And the Clippers fans who went through the type of BS that we do here in Minnesota. And we've gone through that many, many times when it's such a promising season. Everything looks so good, unbelievably well, and bam, swept 4-0. Or tick-tock, boom, the hockey puck bounces off the stanchion, whatever that is, right? Part of the metal part of the net that wound up going in the goal. And the Wild ended up losing a season just like that, and the weirdest bounce ever last season in game number 6. Or the 98 Vikings, wide right. Gary Anderson can't make a field goal that would have ran things out. Or Robert Smith. Robert Smith steps out of bounds, keeping the clock or stopping the clock, where the Atlanta Hawks would have ran out of time. Stuff like that, things like that took place for the Vikings way back in '98. Yeah, way back, dare I say? Heck, I graduated in high school that year. And I'm saying way back. Ouch. But no, things like that. Just classic Minnesota Vikings history. Things look so promising, and bam, we lose. We fumble the first 2 kickoffs in the 2000 NFC Championship game, and we lose that game 41-0 in East Rutherford, New Jersey, due to the New York Giants' delight, even though they lost the Super Bowl 31-0. So, oh darn. Too bad for them, right? Oh, boy. Yeah, and then you get 2009 with the Vikings, of course. We all know, well, most of us here in Minnesota know what happened there. Those of you in Australia, maybe not, and New Zealand and such, maybe you watched them, maybe you didn't. But things looking promising, one fumble after another, but we just kept surviving, and we kept playing better than the New Orleans Saints. Slightly better, but better. We looked like the better team the whole time. How we're driving down the field, just like championship teams do, with less than a minute remaining, and a very clutch, very good kicker ready to roll. We get past the 50-yard line. Oh my God, we are going to the Super Bowl like so many teams do. They get down the field, get to that 35-yard line or whatever it is, kick the field goal, and off to the Super Bowl we go. And then there was too many men on the field. Stuff like that. That's where Clipper fans can relate to Minnesota. We'll see if the same thing happens to Cleveland fans once again with LeBron James and such. I've drugged this out a little while, but I'm kind of in storytelling mood. I'm kind of in a storytelling mood tonight, aren't I? As you can tell. This was a really, really awesome, really, this was a really, really good second round of the playoffs, as you can tell. It brought back old memories, good and bad. But the Rockets, all those clutch shots, very, very amazing, very cool. We'll see what happens as they go into the West Finals. And, of course, for the poor Clippers fans, more than the players. I don't really care for the players that much, most of them. I feel for Chris Paul, even though he's kind of an a-hole out there. I feel for him this year because I think he was a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he really, really wanted it this year, and it's sad. He's never been to the conference finals before in his career, so feel for him there. But yeah, for those of us here in Minnesota who've been through so much BS, I do feel for the Clipper fans as well. So let's make the predictions very, very quickly here. Golden State Warriors hosting the Houston Rockets. That thing is going to go 7, I think. Yeah, that series is going to go 7. Unfortunately, I think the home team is going to win 4-3. That being the Golden State Warriors. That's my current updated prediction right there. Houston's going to make that thing really interesting. And if they do win it, it will be in 6. That's my early prediction. Cleveland versus Atlanta. I really like the momentum the Cleveland Cavaliers picked up during the course of the 6th game, but I also like the momentum the Atlanta Hawks picked up in their game. This one is going to be really, 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 really tough to predict. And, of course, it'd be like Cleveland in 6 or Atlanta in 7, yes. So that's it's going to be one of those two. That's the key here. Atlanta's depth is fantastic, but they've shown vulnerability against teams like Washington and even Brooklyn in the postseason. Will Cleveland's star power with LeBron James be enough to beat the Hawks, or will the lack of depth be their undoing with the Cleveland Browns because of injuries to Kevin Love, and now Kyrie Irving's been bouncing around and hurt? This is a tough one to predict. I mean, a lot of people are probably picking Cleveland here, and Atlanta's kind of been on a mission most of the season. They seem to be survivors here. The power forward position, I think, man. I mean, this is going to be the toughest situation here for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I keep wanting to say Cleveland Browns, and that's driving me crazy. What really is going to happen between these teams here? Cleveland's big man situations versus Atlanta. That's a huge I think Cleveland's an underdog there. Though Tristan Thompson's been getting rebounds, that's helpful. And they did survive Joakim Noah, and he did not look very good ultimately. And Paul Gasol was injured a bit during that series. That did definitely not help the Chicago Bulls' cause at all. And that's a big reason why they were able to defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to defeat the Bulls. That's very key, and I need to mention that, obviously. Yeah, you think. This is a really tough one. I mean, Cleveland can win games on the road, and they've shown that in the past. Luckily for them, they won, they won Game 4 on the road to keep themselves going, and they won Game 6 on the road. That's good. It's so hard to pick the Atlanta Hawks to go to the finals, but I had them winning the championship, so I'll stick with it. I'll have Hawks in 7 by a very slim margin at this point. That's my early prediction. Subject to change, but that's my prediction right now. Hawks in 7 by the narrowest of margins over the Cavaliers. But a big part of me wants to pick the Cavs because they look like they're ready to roll through this thing. So, but let's just stick with Hawks in 7. Let's move on. Let's get to the Facebook and Twitter and call it a night. We'll be right back after this. And we are back here on Timberwolves Explosion, segment number 3, fan interaction. And it's going to be pretty small this week, unfortunately, but that's okay, I suppose, because I went on and on and on in the previous segment. So, yeah, previous 2 segments, to be quite honest. So it just kind of is what it is. It turns out this way, and not a whole lot of Wolves conversation right now, but there'll be more next week after the draft lottery, and we'll know where the Wolves are going and all that. So let's get to the Facebook page. Simply to get there, to get there, simply type in Timberwolves Explosion, Minnesota Timberwolves Show in the search bar on Facebook. Click on the one that says Company, not Group. If there are 2 choices, Company, not Group, click like on the show. Join in the conversation would be greatly appreciated. Vince Germano of the Courtside Podcast, a show that I love and endorse, and I didn't really talk about it on this show that much. Whoops. So I was so stuck in the train of thoughts, but, I suppose shout-outs are best usually around the fan interaction time anyway. But You know what I mean. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. Wonderful Courtside podcast. Hank McCoy, Vince Germano. Check that one out on iTunes. More than worth a listen. They've been keeping up with the playoffs. Oh, my. None of us have our favorite teams in the playoffs anymore. Hank's Grizzlies, Vince's Lakers, and my Timberwolves, of course. And Vince Germano is also on the Showtime and T-Wolves show with me as well. The Wolves and Lakers type of show. We need to record that again, and I keep putting it off, and I apologize. We probably have a lot to say on that one. Okay, there we go. Got that in there? He says Hoiberg is the Bulls' choice to replace Tibbs, according to Real GM, and I did see that, and that sucks. Yeah. Ultimately, though, it's like, if we don't go after Tibbs, Flip needs to go, because, that's what they've been saying. Hoiberg is the who the Bulls want. Ultimately, Tom Thibodeau is out of there. No news as of yet on Tom Thibodeau's on his fate with the Chicago Bulls. Nothing going on yet. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe we'll be waiting until the playoffs are over. Who knows what's going to happen? But it sounds like the Chicago Bulls may throw the moon at Fred Hoiberg. The possibility really exists there. And if that happens, we got to get Tom Thibodeau in here, please. Even though that's probably easier said than done. Please. That would be so nice. Indeed. Let's go over to Twitter. Not the nicest thing I've heard somebody say to me, but hey, that's part of radio. He wasn't ripping me, but he's just giving an opinion. Jared Johnson. I believe this is the first time I've heard from him, and apparently he listens to the show, so really nice to hear from you. He says, at J_smooth236. That's his Twitter handle. He says, regarding this week's episode, that being last week, like it was 2 weeks ago now, I have a feeling your dislike for the Warriors and their style of play comes from jealousy. No. Yes and no. It'd be nice if we could shoot threes, yes. And I don't hate... I'm not that much of a hater with the Warriors. It's just... I pretty much explained, and of course, he wrote this way before I explained it, so I'm not trying to show off and correct him here. No. But, as you probably heard earlier, I pretty much explained my real reasoning there. I like the Warriors just fine, and again, like I was saying, if they're going to continue to make all their threes, good for them. I don't like when teams start launching threes, though. Are still launching threes with 30 seconds, 45 seconds left, and they're up by 15, 20 points. I don't know. It seems kind of douchey to me, but whatever. If that's in the game plan, that's in the game plan, and I know maybe you just gotta do a better job stopping them. That's the old saying, and that's kind of how it goes. I don't know. At least they're not launching threes though with the last 24. With the 24-second clock being off. Obviously, nobody does that. That's kind of not very nice to do. But at the same time, maybe we're all too uptight, meaning myself and others out there that think the way I do. The Warriors are fine, Jared. I'm not as big of a hater as it might sound. I just like what LeBron James brings more than Steph Curry. It's just an opinion. I like the style LeBron James brings to the NBA more than Steph Curry and Tristan Thompson and guys like that. But again, more power to him. If you're going to hit threes and you're going to make them, particularly in moments maybe you're down by 2 points or up by 3 points, and it's a huge shot late in the game, that's fun to see. And, it changes the momentum of the game, and boom, now you're on your way. And especially being able to pull that off on the road, that's really impressive against a tough team like the Houston Rockets. They're going to probably have to win a road game against the Houston Rockets at some point. And if they do, they're in very good shape. But then again, maybe Houston will win a road game in Oracle, and that'd be extremely impressive if they're able to pull that off. Memphis was able to do that. So, no, I don't... I'm not jealous of really anybody other than, sure, I'd like to win some games too. That would be nice. But, no. Jealousy? No. Nah. Maybe I'm too old school for the millennial generation. Okay, sure, I am in some ways. But I'm also not stupid. I acknowledge the fact that... 3-point shots are actually a higher percentage right now than any long-range two-pointers that Flip Saunders has Anthony Bennett shooting, and that drives me absolutely bonkers, and I'm sure it drives you nuts too if you are a Timberwolves fan, Jared and others out there. Yeah, those long 2-pointers are they're lower percentage than the threes, because a lot of guys work on their 3-point shot more than they're going to work on a long range 2-point shot, and it's a weird spot to shoot. It's it's not. There's no measurement to it. You're just shooting it. Where the 3-pointer, you know where the 3 is, and you're going to take your shot there, and you're going to take it thousands of times over the course of practices and such as you're leading up to the season, and thousands of times during your career in game situations if you're a guy that has the green light to shoot the 3. So, yeah. I drug that out a little bit, but I don't know. When I'm being accused of jealousy, I might have to defend myself a little bit there. But no animosity from myself. Hopefully none from you. He's still following. That's a good sign. Didn't piss you off too much that you're out of here, so that's good. Thank you very, very much, Jared, for your listenership. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you continue to listen. Thank you very much. So, shout-outs to Tanae Brown and others, Hank McCoy. Love when you guys are able to post on here. Understand if you're not able to, you're too busy, or my dumbass hasn't been saying anything lately, and I feel bad about that. And more news will come out. Obviously, this week, you're going to be getting more interaction. That's why I will be back next week. So, with that said, I will be back next week. Let's get that number 1 pick overall, or at least number 2. I know a lot of people are scared of, don't give them the number 1 pick. This way somebody else could screw up, and then we wind up with the best player, So, yeah, they wind up with the, forgive me, Anthony Bennett, and we wind up with, the better choice. We'll see what happens. That Anthony Bennett draft was a terrible draft anyway, so far. Maybe that was a stupid statement too. Somebody will come back and say, boy, you're dumb. But I'm not really concentrating on the 2013 draft right now. I'm concentrating on 2015 for the time being. And yeah, we'll come back. Plus, whatever. Let's just move on from that, that conversation. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week to talk about the draft lottery and the 2 conference finals and my continued hatred for the Warriors. No, I'm kidding. We'll be back. We'll be back soon.